Good morning.
Good morning.
It's April 17, and it's a beautiful morning, about almost 60 degrees. Of course, I'm in my little jacket, but yeah, it won't be on for long. And we decided we'd come down here to the shade area and discuss shade plants.
So now I'm going to leave and be the cameraman. If you hear a disembodied voice, it's not spirits, it's me.
All right. So we decided a long time ago we needed to have a really nice shade department because we're right near Tyler, Texas, and there's a lot of really huge trees in our area of the world. We're in the very edge of the piney woods. So a lot of gardening is done in the shade around us. So we need to offer some really cool plants. So this year we have a couple of kinds of astilbe. And this is a astilbe right here, and it gets these really nice plumy spikes of flowers. You see these a lot up north, but really if you have a nice moist shady area, they do actually very well in that kind of a spot. So very interesting little plant, and not offered very often, so it's fun to get them when you can. And then this is called Indian pink, which is also not a very common plant. And
it's actually a Native American wildflower.
Yeah, spigelia is its botanical name, and it grows quite nicely here, and it kind of multiplies out as it grows and blooms this time of year for how long? 6 weeks maybe?
Oh yeah, a long time.
Long time? Okay. Anyway, very nice. And moving on down, we have a shrub called the stylium, and this one is called vintage jade. And we discovered this maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Pull one out so they can see the shape of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's very graceful in the way that it grows. And it also has a red flower on it, but during the late winter, early spring is when it blooms, kind of when nothing much else is going on, which is nice. And it gets quite wide as it grows and kind of balloons out, but it will also get, what, 3 to 4 feet tall too. So it just makes a very nice, pretty shrub, and the leaf is a nice glossy dark green all year long. So we like that for shrubbery. And then over here, I'm going to talk about this because this is one of my very favorite things still all time. If you need a ground cover for a place that gets a fair amount of water in the summertime, this is golden moneywort, also called creeping jenny. It's a Lysomachia, and it roots as it goes along, but it's not really a problem because if you need to pull it up, it's not like some things where you have to really dig with a shovel to get it out. You could just go like this and it just pulls right up, which is really fabulous. It also works as a drape in a pot really nicely too.
Which is really attractive.
Right.
Great color too.
Right. On this side, we also have Turk's cap, which if you have dry shade, that makes a really big plant that has little turban, hibiscusy looking flowers on it in the summer and fall. So that's a nice thing. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Fucheras, coral bells. So they bloom this time of year, whites and pinks mostly, occasionally a red one. We love the foliage. They work in sandy soils because they like it kind of dry and lean actually, or pots work really, really well. So they stay green all year, which is also a nice feature for a pot because you can leave it out the whole time. But comes in corals and lime greens and maroons, so nice foliage colors. Not so much for the action of the flowers, more for the color of the foliage. And that's one thing you have to think about with shade gardening. You don't get a lot of color from flowers except usually in the springtime. And if you think about the woods, when the leaves are off the trees, that's usually when things bloom in the woods. And then when the leaves come on and make a canopy, you get a lot less color. And that's the same way in even the plants that we offer.
Hank is bumping our camera
in
here.
The nursery.
He wants to be involved.
Hanky. So you kind of have to look for texture and foliage color a lot also when you shade garden. So here's Fatsedra, which is called Angiostar. And it's a cross between the shrub Fatsia and English ivy, old-timey English ivy. So it makes it kind of a thick woody stalk instead of loose like a English ivy. And marginally hardy, I'd say, on the variegated. There's a green version that's a little hardier than the variegated. But if you have a nice protected area or you want to do a pot, this is really fun. Okay, what else? Oh yes. Let me get down here. We have lots of hosta this time of year because, of course, hosta are extremely popular for shady gardens because they come in lots of different foliage colors, greens and whites and golds and solid greens and dark greens and limey greens and all kinds of colors. So, can you see them good?
Yes.
Okay, so this is stained glass, which if you see it up close, it really kind of does look like stained glass. All of them flower in the summer. The flower stalks come up and they have little bell-shaped flowers, and some varieties actually have a little fragrance in the flowers, which is kind of fun too. So most of them are lavender or whites in their flower color. But again, the majority of the reason that you grow them is because you really want foliage color, not so much flowers. Okay, what else? Oh, let's talk about this because this is one of my favorites. This is a true yew called Emerald Spreader, and it's got a very, very dark blue-green foliage, but in the spring when it pushes off this new growth, it's like a lime green, which I think is really neat, but it grows out like a ground cover as it grows, and it's an evergreen, and it does require adequate moisture through the summer, though. Not for a dry garden. It has to be something like where you plant azaleas, maybe, where you have to water.
Where you have regular irrigation.
Right, exactly. So anyway, I love that plant. Then we have elephant ears. What else? Oh, here's a fun one. We have this in our flower bed up near the kitchen. And this is Persicaria red dragon, which we actually talked about this when we talked about cut flowers.
That's right, we did.
And it gets about knee high, a little bit higher, but it's really full and attractive with little white flowers all summer. So that's one of the few things that you see color on in the summertime. All right, if you need a vine for the shade, your choices are a little bit limited usually. So this one is called Akebia or chocolate vine, and it has little purple flowers on it, and it does grow in some nice dark shade. And then this is fig vine, which is self-clinging. Chocolate vine you have to attach to something, but fig vine will actually grow on a wall. Come closer.
Yeah, I'm afraid they won't hear you.
She's giving me hand signals. Anyway, so fig vine's fun to do. So you can see this a lot on flat walls where it's just adhered on its own with its little suction cups on it. So that's cool for food.
It does burn sometimes in the winter, but you just like run your hand across it, get off all those old brown leaves, and then it just leaves right back out.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we have purple oxalis. We actually have two oxalis. Let me see if I can find one that looks good. So that actually blooms all summer long. Now, I will tell you, if you plant oxalis, you better really want it because it is one of those aggressive plants that we talked about last time too. Anyway, this one has yellow leaves all over. But this is a little green version with fuchsia flowers, and then this is the purple leafed version, which is really pretty too. And I see this a lot in container plantings also, shade containers.
Yeah, it makes a great container plant.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Talk African hosta.
Huh?
African hosta.
Yes.
Yeah.
They don't look like much. Oh, here's a bigger flat in these little pots. But they call it African hosta. It has spotted leaves. It is not a hosta. It's in a totally different genus than a hosta. But it multiplies out like a hosta would. It gets these little interesting little flowers this time of year. But mostly you're growing it for its leaves. So maybe another, 5 or 6 inches taller.
That's about all.
But really, really sturdy, really hardy, very prolific, but not in a bad way, just in a good way. It's fun. Love it. Okay, another fun one for summer color is, this is related to your old-fashioned Mexican petunia. which can you see this one?
Yes, you can see that one.
Okay, so that's tall Mexican petunia right there. That and then there's dwarf Katy, which is a pink Mexican petunia that's really popular. So this is a Ruellia that is red, and the leaf is very different, fuzzy compared to this nice smooth textured leaf. And it doesn't get very tall, maybe about 6 inches on the foliage, and then the flowers come up. But it really is hardy.
And it can do full sun too.
Yeah, it's really a nifty little plant, so I kind of love that. All right, then there's a lot of little ground covers here and things like that that are just, you know, filler. And we have lots of kinds of hydrangea, which of course are extremely popular. All right, so the newest trend, I shouldn't say newest because it's been for a while now. I'll wait till the traffic goes by. We got a busy road this morning. Hydrangea used to bloom the one time in the summer, and then you had to cut them back immediately or you would cut off the buds for the next year. Well, in the last 10 years or so, they've developed hydrangea that rebloom. So they bloom and then they bloom again and they bloom again. And sometimes we've had them bloom all the way to Christmas, which has been very exciting. And the great thing about them too is you can trim them and prune them anytime, and you're not cutting off the new buds for the following year because they bloom on the new growth instead of the old growth.
Yeah, so you can use them for cut flowers.
So it's fabulous. Yeah. So there are a lot of different kinds. Endless Summer was the original one, and there's Blushing Bride, and there's Summer Crush and Twist and Shout. Lots of different reblooming. But if you look for that, then you'll have color a lot longer through the season that way, which makes it really nice. Okay, what else?
I'd say that's it.
Okay. Well, y'all have a great day. Thanks.